Today we're going to learn how to use substitution to solve for an unknown variable. Let's first look at this problem. Blank plus 6 equals 10. If I was to give you this problem, you'd say, oh, that's easy. All I have to do is subtract 6 from 10 to get 4, so I would know that 4 plus 6 equals 10. What about other equations that have unknown variables? Something like x plus 3 equals 10. We just need to make a balanced equation. What we do to one side of the equation, we do the other. We can do this by using inverse operations, plus and minus, or multiplication and division. Now let's walk through the steps to solve a problem. We'll start with the addition problem from our last slide. The first thing we want to do is we want to identify our unknown variable, and we'll put a box around it. So in this case, our unknown variable is x. So I will draw a box around the x. So now I know that step 1, draw a box around the unknown variable. The next thing I want to do is I want to split my equation in half. I want to draw a line to divide the side with the equation from the side that does not have the equation. So now we have step 2. Step 2. Draw a line to separate the two sides of our equation. Now we want to look at the side that our variable's on, and we see what's left outside of the box is a plus 3. So I have to find what the opposite of plus 3 is, which I know is minus 3. So the minus 3 is the inverse operation. And as I said before, what I do to one side, I have to do the other side. So I'm going to subtract 3 off the other side also. So this is going to be 3 plus 3 minus 3 is going to be a 0, and 10 minus 3 is a 7. So now I can write what our step 3 is. So step 3, do the inverse or opposite of the number by our unknown variable to both sides. I know that sounds pretty rough. What it's saying is because our unknown variable is the x, and on the side by the x was the plus 3, I'm going to do the inverse operation. So since this was plus 3, the inverse operation was minus 3. And I'm going to do that to both sides, both this side and the other side of the equation. Remember, we drew the line down the middle of the equation to separate the side with the variable from the side without. So we're doing that inverse operation to both sides. Now all we have left to do is we need to bring down our unknown variable, which is x, and I can rewrite that x. Then I'm going to look at what my original sign was, which was an equals. So I'm going to put my equal sign as, and then I look what's on that other side of my new number now is going to be a 7. So I wrote the 7, so we can solve from this equation that x equals 7. And I can check it out because I can go 7 plus 3 equals 10. So our last and final step, step 4, we need to bring down the variable this case it's being x, and use our sign, or I guess I should say, and bring down the variable and the sign. In this case, the sign, once again, is the equals. So I'm going to bring down the variable and I'm going to bring down the sign. And the number left, I'm going to just abbreviate, and the number from the opposite side. Now I'm going to quickly run through what happens if it was a subtraction problem. Say it was 7 plus x equals 4. In this case, once again, I want to put a square around my variable. I'm going to draw a line separating the two sides. Then I'm going to do the opposite of the number on the side by the variable. In this case, it's 7. So the opposite of positive 7 would be a negative 7. So once again, I guess this is a plus sign, but this will get me a negative number. So 7 minus 7 is 0, but 4 minus 7, remember when we're subtracting a negative number, I've got a positive number and a negative, and when the signs are unlike, we put that big number on top, the little number on the bottom, we subtract, you get 3, and you give it the sign of the bigger number. In this case, the bigger sign was negative 7, so our answer over here will be negative 3. So then next thing I would do is I'm bringing down the x. It was an equal sign, so I make it an equal sign, and then I bring down my negative 3. So in this case, x equals negative 3. And I can plug that back in. If I plug my negative 3 in right here, x plus minus 3 would just be the same thing as x minus 3 would equal 4, so I know that equation would be correct. Now what happens if we have a multiplication problem? 3x plus 2 equals 7. We do this in this very similar fashion. First thing I want to do is I want to draw a box around my unknown variable and draw a line separating my two sides of my problem. Here though, I have a plus 2, so my next thing I do is I subtract 2 from both sides. So I'm going to get a 0, and here I'm going to get a 5. And then I'm going to bring down my 3x. 3x equals 5. Now it's like having a brand new problem. Once again, only this time there's no other number over here, so I'm just going to circle the x. And now I've got a multiplication problem. So what's the inverse of multiplication is division. So I'm going to divide this side by 3, and I'm going to divide this side by 3. And we all know that when we divide, we are going to take 3 divided by 3. 3 divided by 3 will be 1. So I end up with 1x. And over here it will equal with 5 over 3. And in this case, I can just leave it here. And 1x is the same thing as saying x equals 5/3. I still did all the same steps. One, I circled my unknown variable and got rid of the other number that was by it. Or if it was just like this, I would just circle my variable because there's no other number other than what I'm multiplying by it. And I had to divide. Let's look at another one. Let's look at another problem. I'll just do a simple division problem. If I have the equation x divided by 3 equals, let's put 7. I'm going to, once again, I'm going to put a square around my unknown variable and draw a line right down the middle. So what I do to one side, I have to do the other. In this case, I'm dividing by 3. So my inverse operation of division is multiplication. So I have to multiply this side by 3 and then I'm going to multiply this side by 3. Now, I know when I divide 3, when I multiply 3 and divide by 3, I cancel each other out. So once again, I'm going to end up with 1x. And on this side, I'm multiplying 7 by 3, which will give me 21. So once again, if I have 1x, that's the same thing as writing x, and over here x equals 21. Now you can see I did my steps of my problem. First thing I did is I circled my unknown variable and drew a line separating the two sides of my problems. Next, I took the inverse operation. I was divided by 3, so now I'm multiplying by 3, and I multiply by 3 on both sides. Then I go ahead and solve for that equation. So 3 divided by 3, and I'm actually, because I'm multiplying, but I'm dividing also, is 1. And 7 times 3 is 21. I get x equals 21. I hope this video has helped you by showing you a few examples on how to do this. The best thing to do now is just to go and practice some problems on your own.